The front door creaked open. It wasn't the cautious click of a family member coming home late. It was slower, as if whoever stood there was listening for movement inside. I pushed the blanket aside and sat up, holding my breath. The clock on my nightstand glowed 3:02 a.m. My neighborhood wasn't noisy at night, and the sound of an uninvited door opening at this hour meant only one thing: someone was inside. The boards under my feet groaned as I stepped out of bed. I grabbed my phone from the charger, my thumb hovering over the emergency number but not pressing it yet. The hallway was dim, lit only by a thin slice of streetlight sneaking through the front curtains. Every shadow looked heavier, like it was hiding something. I moved slowly, each step careful, my socks sliding slightly on the wood. A faint shuffle came from the kitchen, followed by the soft clink of the metal chain I'd left hanging on the inside of the door. I rounded the corner. A tall, thin figure stood half in shadow, facing me. His clothes were dirty, the jacket frayed at the cuffs. Hair longer than I remembered, falling into his eyes. I opened my mouth, ready to demand who he was, but then, "Mom, it's me, Daniel. I'm alive." The voice didn't match the image in my head of my son. It was deeper, rougher, but it had the same uneven edge it did when he was nervous. My legs felt like they had been nailed to the floor. Daniel had been gone for more than a year. The police told me after 6 months that the search had reached a dead end. They used words like presumed and closure, as if I should pack away the hope I had left. I'd buried his favorite hoodie and the old sneakers he used to wear in a box in the attic, trying to tell myself it was over. Now he stood a few feet away, breathing hard, eyes darting toward the window behind me. He looked thinner, his cheeks hollow, but there was a sharpness in his gaze that made me realize he hadn't come here just to be home. "Where have you been?" I asked, my voice sounding strange in my own ears, part fear, part disbelief. He shook his head quickly. "Not here. I can't explain here." The way he said it, tight, urgent, sent a chill down my arms. His gaze flicked to the corners of the room like he expected someone else to be there. I took one step toward him. "Daniel, are you in trouble right now?" He hesitated, jaw tightening. Then he glanced at the front door, as if weighing whether to run or stay. That was when I realized something that made my stomach drop. He wasn't looking at me for comfort. He was looking at me for help. "Yes," he said finally. "I'm in trouble. And someone else is too." The words landed heavy, pulling me the rest of the way into the room. I closed the front door quietly, locking it, and motioned for him to follow me into the kitchen. He didn't move right away. His eyes swept the corners, the back door, the windows. Only then did he step forward. Up close, I could see more than I wanted to. His hands were raw, with cracked knuckles and dirt under his nails. A faint bruise trailed along his jawline, half hidden in the shadows. The jacket he wore looked too big, like it had been given to him, not bought. "Daniel," I said, pulling out a chair at the table. "You need to tell me everything. Where have you been?" He stayed standing. "Do you remember last year, when I was walking home from work and never made it?" My grip on the back of the chair tightened. That day had replayed in my mind for months. I nodded. "I saw a group of men shoving a girl into a van," he said. His voice shook, but it wasn't from fear, it was rage. She was screaming, trying to fight them off. I couldn't just walk past. I stayed quiet. I tried to pull her out, but there were too many of them. One hit me. Next thing I remember, I was waking up in some kind of basement. No windows. Concrete walls. His gaze drifted to the floor. They kept me there, along with other people. Made us work, heavy labor, repairs. Anyone who slowed down got beaten. My chest tightened. For a year. He nodded. Almost. I lost track of time. The girl, her name's MIA, she's the reason I got out. She figured out a way to distract the guards so I could slip through a service exit. His eyes flicked up to mine, sharp again. But now they've got her. And they know she helped me escape. I swallowed hard, the truth settling in. "So you came here for the police?" He shook his head. I came here for you. The police won't move fast enough. These people, they don't wait. The air between us felt charged. A dozen questions fought to be asked, but one forced itself out. Where are they keeping her? His answer was immediate. In a compound outside the old industrial park. I know every hallway, every lock. And I know the way their leader will try to run when the heat comes. That was when I realized this wasn't going to be a phone call and a statement. He had a plan. And whether I was ready or not, I was part of it. By morning, my kitchen table looked like something out of a war room. The coffee pot was still half full, but no one was drinking it. A folded street map lay open, covered in Daniel's precise handwriting, red circles marking guard posts, blue XS for locked gates, arrows showing the path he called the only way out if things go bad. Daniel sat at the head of the table, shoulders squared, speaking like someone who had been rehearsing this moment in his head for months. Two detectives listened intently, occasionally jotting notes. You're saying you've been inside this place? Detective Harris asked, flipping a page in his notebook. For a year, Daniel replied without hesitation. His voice was steady, but his eyes were locked on the map. And if we wait for a warrant, MIA won't survive. The younger detective leaned forward. You think they'll move her? I know they will, Daniel said. When I escaped, they tore the place apart looking for me. Anyone they suspected of helping me disappeared within hours. He paused, glancing at me briefly. They'll do the same to her. Detective Harris rubbed his jaw. We can't go in blind. Daniel's hand moved across the map, pointing at a narrow line in red pencil. You're not. I've memorized the shift changes, the blind spots in the cameras, and the back entrance your maps don't show. This, he tapped the line, is where the boss will run. I know, because that's the route I used to get out. I studied him. This wasn't the same boy who'd left home a year ago. There was no hesitation in his words, no uncertainty in his tone. He spoke like someone who'd already decided what needed to be done, whether anyone else approved or not. The room went quiet for a long moment before Harris finally said, if we do this, it's fast and quiet. You go in as a guide, nothing more. No hero moves. Daniel gave a short nod, but the set of his jaw told me he'd already planned something else. That night, the raid came together with a kind of precision that felt almost unreal. Police vests laid out in neat rows, unmarked vans lined up behind the station, radios testing their channels. Daniel kept to himself, checking and rechecking the folded map in his pocket. I stayed back in the command van, eyes fixed on the split-screen feed from the officers' body cams. The compound looked exactly as he described, narrow corridors with flickering lights, peeling paint on the walls, and metal doors secured with heavy padlocks. I saw flashes of movement, officers sweeping rooms, leading dazed, frightened people toward the exit. Then one of the feeds caught sudden movement in the upper hallway. The camera swung sharply, and an officer's voice cut through the radio. Target moving. Heading for the north exit. The grainy feed showed the gang leader, a heavy coat, hood pulled low, pushing through a service door. He was fast. Too fast. That's the escape route. Daniel's voice came through the radio, breathless. He's going for the hatch. Before I could process it, Daniel was off the feed entirely. I heard shouts in the background, officers calling for him to stop, but his radio had gone dead. I turned to the command officer. Where is he? No one answered. Static hissed through the speakers, and I realized my hands were gripping the edge of the table so hard my knuckles had gone white. The only sound in my ears was the pounding of my own heartbeat, and somewhere in that compound, my son chasing the man who had stolen a year of his life. The radio crackled with overlapping voices. Officers shouting coordinates. Someone yelling about North Hatch, another about contact on the east side. Then I heard it, Daniel's voice, faint but clear. Mom, stay in the van. I ignored it. I grabbed the spare vest hanging by the door and stepped out into the cold night air. The industrial park loomed in front of me, all rusted fences and half-collapsed roofs. The officers at the perimeter barely registered me as they rushed past, focused on their own sectors. I moved along the outer wall, keeping low until I reached a side door hanging slightly ajar. Inside, the air was damp and metallic. Faint voices echoed from deeper in the building, orders barked, boots pounding on concrete. Then I heard it, a muffled cry. Following the sound, I reached a locked storage room. The padlock was old, the metal corroded. My hands shook as I pulled. MIA. Her eyes were wide, wrists bound, but the moment she saw me she surged forward. Daniel, where's Daniel? She asked. He's here, I said, cutting the tape from her wrists. But we need to move, now. We slipped into the hallway, keeping to the shadows. Shouts and the echo of gunfire erupted from the far side of the compound. The police had engaged the gang members. I led MIA toward the outer gate, glancing back every few seconds, praying Daniel was still on his feet. Somewhere else in the compound, Daniel was closing in on the gang leader. The man had made it to the narrow hatch at the back of the property, the same escape route Daniel had used months ago. But Daniel knew every turn, every loose floorboard. He caught him just as the hatch swung open. You're not walking away this time, Daniel said, pinning him against the wall. The boss reached for a hidden knife, but Daniel was faster. He shoved him forward, out into the alley, where 2 officers were waiting. The leader went down hard, face first into the asphalt, handcuffs snapping into place before he could move. By the time we reached the van, MIA was trembling but safe. Officers were escorting the last of the freed captives into the perimeter. Daniel emerged a minute later, sweat running down his face, but his eyes, those same eyes that had looked so guarded at my door, were finally steady. You're okay, I said, pulling him into my arms. You're both okay. He nodded, glancing toward MIA, who managed a small, grateful smile. Thanks to you. The police wrapped up the operation before sunrise. The compound was cleared, the gang dismantled, their leader in custody. It should have felt like the end. But that night, as I was locking the front door, I saw an envelope on the porch. No stamp. No address. My name written in thick black ink. Inside was a single note. You took one of mine. Now I'll take one of yours. I folded it slowly, my fingers steady. If they came again, they wouldn't find me waiting in fear. They'd find me ready.